We got time? Stuart? I think it's too bad, Stuart, that we haven't time to ask you to play an encore. You are without a doubt the most remarkable child violinist I have ever heard. Am I right, Murray? What do you think?
I think so.
How long have you been studying?
5 years.
5 years, huh? And you're 10 years old? And that isn't a full-size violin,
No.
is it?
No.
Did you start on that at 5 years or smaller?
No, smaller one.
Smaller than that, huh?
3/4.
And that's a 3/4, isn't
Yeah.
it? Imagine if 10 or 15 years from now and you're playing the cello up under your chin there. What grade are you in at school?
Public school?
Public school? Do you go to public school?
5B.
5B? Where do you live? Edgemere?
Edgemere.
And you're in 5B, huh?
Yeah.
What do you know, Murray? A little fella in the 5th grade at school and already plays better than Jack Benny.
From Zoom City and Internet Land, we bring you the Jack Benny Convention. Today's program, a conversation with the legendary Stuart Canin, moderated by Laura Leibowitz.
All right, welcome back. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, do we have a treat for you. I know this is one of the moments that you've all been waiting for. I feel like I don't even need to say this to this crowd, but everybody's so knowledgeable on Jack Benny. But on December 30th, 1936, just a couple of years ago, there was a little boy who was 10 years old and appeared on the Fred Allen program. And he played this number.
I'm crying all over again.
And because he is so much better to look at than I am, I'm going to take my video off and let's focus on welcoming the one and only Stuart Canin. Welcome, Stuart.
Thank you. Great to be here. Great to be anywhere.
That sounds like a George Bruce line. Okay, so tell us how it happened. How did you audition and get on the Fred Allen show?
Well, it was December 1936. Hey, you'll have to correct me if I'm goofing on the years, but I think I got it right. December 30th, 1936. About a couple of days before, there was an ad in the New York Post, an old newspaper at that time, and it said that Fred Allen was looking for young people to play, and he was going to pay $75 for your performance. And
that
my dad
was small money in 36, you know, God, in the middle.
Well, my father was making $25 a week. so we decided we'd go and we'd try. So I went in and played for Uncle Jim Hartman, Uncle Jim Harkins, that's right. and I played the Preludium and Allegro by Fritz Kreisler, and that piece takes about 4.5 minutes. And Uncle Jim said, Stuart, he said, that's great, but no, the sponsors will not allow 4.5 minutes for a kid on national TV, national radio. Do you have something shorter? So I said, I think I do. I went home and I practiced the B, and I got it down to 45 seconds because he wanted a minute's worth of playing. I got it to 45 seconds. It came back. He said, that's wonderful. So that night, December 30th, 1936, at 9 o'clock in the evening, that was when Fred Allen broadcast, and I played the B, and I got a very nice hand. And then you wouldn't believe it, but at 12 o'clock here, I was 10 years old, but at midnight, we had to play it for the West Coast because Fred always wanted to do that because he knew Jack would be listening. And he made this remark, something about when Jack plays the violin, it sounds like a she-wildcat defending her young. And so I played again at midnight. And that was the end of it. You know, went home, collected our money. I remember they took us to dinner to Stauffer's. Remember that restaurant?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Look at that.
Yeah. Well, this is when you were a little older than 10.
Yes. Oh, yes. This is when they were presenting me with a check for $1,000 at the premiere of Love Thy Neighbor that he made with Jack Benny, probably one of the, I hope Jack won't mind, and Fred certainly won't mind, that I say it was probably one of the worst pictures ever made. But the title was Love Thy Neighbor, which was very ironic. Anyway, so that was Sunday night when I played the B on Fred's show. And then came that was a Wednesday night. And then Sunday night was Jack Benny from California. And by the way, the reason that they had to play it twice, had to do the program twice from New York, was because there was no coaxial cable or whatever the technical term is to carry the stuff over to the West Coast. So they had to do the same thing over. Anyways, the next Sunday, 3, 4, 5 days later, Jack came on and tried to rebuff Fred's statement that he was a pretty bad violinist. It just went on from there. They never contacted each other for months because they felt that this was the only way to do it, is to just do it ad lib, their remarks. And came when Jack came to New York at that time, at the Waldorf Astoria, I believe, we had a program. He said, "Don't bring your violin." I said, "Really?" He said, "What do you want to do? What do you want to do?" He said he was going to try to prove that I was not 10 years old, but that I was 10 years, 3 months, 4 minutes and 2 seconds older. And so that was a lie, that I was only 10 years old. Anyway, that was the beginning of the whole thing. And then, of course, I went on a lot of other programs, the Coffee Maxwell House, a whole bunch of Fred's show again, and that's where it went. And then in 1965, I was a professor at Oberlin College in Oberlin, Ohio, and the phone rang, and my wife Virginia answered the phone, and she looked at me with a Jack Benny look. She said, "He says it's Jack Benny." I'll take the phone. And of course it was Jack, and he asked me to come on his TV show. And we went out to the Roosevelt Hotel in Hollywood, and we did this wonderful TV show called The Stradivarius Story, in which Jack plays Antonio Stradivarius and how he made violins. Of course, one of the great moments was when Stradivarius worked years and years and years on his varnish to make it just beautiful, and how Jack reduced it to its minimum. He got this big vat full of brown liquid, and he would dunk the violins and lift them out. I mean, it was really, really, really funny. Anyway, that takes you almost up to date, except it's still 40, 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm. I remember when you were on Jack's radio show, and you did it a couple of times. One was in March of '37 when Jack
Right.
was out on the East Coast, and they had, they had you playing kind of a tough little kid.
That's right. That's right. Well, he was a lawyer, and he was trying to prosecute for being older than 10. That was the shtick there.
What coaching did you get did you get coaching from Jack or anybody else?
No. They handed me a script, and I was maybe 10, still 10, because my birthday's in April, and I think this was in March. So I was legitimately 10. And they handed me the script, and I took to it like a duck takes to water. And I started giving him back what he was punching me with the prosecutorial evidence that he had that I was not 10 years old.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And just a personal happy memory that when you were over here for the first time, that you said, he never did play the B. And I said, oh, yes, he did. And just happened to have my computer up, and I pulled up the show where Jack actually plays the B and then flips to Plenty of Money and You in the middle of it. And you looked at me and said, that's not the B. It's like, well, no, but the beginning of it was. Yeah. So anyhow, look at that from the 65.
Oh, yeah, that was when I was at Oberlin. And I was kind of a professorial type, which I'm not sure Jack liked. But there I was. I couldn't change myself.
Mm-hmm. At the end of that, if I thought about it more, I would have I would have had this clip ready. But it's fine. That at the end of it, you and Jack play a serious violin duet.
Yes, we played the B, and of course I took the hard parts and he took the easy parts. So that worked out very well because but it's
not done for laughs, and it's so interesting to see Jack, doing it straight.
He was actually Jack was a well-trained violinist, a little old-fashioned in his style, as you would understand that, but he was not as bad. Not as bad as he made himself out to be. And of course, his audience thought he was terrible, which was his point.
Yeah, I think last night the line came up of, you have to be pretty good to play that badly.
That's a marvel. Who said that?
John, I'm going to have to defer to you. I think you brought that line up.
That's wonderful. You have to be pretty bad to play that.
Yeah. Did you
pretty good to play that, yeah.
Yeah. Did you have any exposure to Jack getting introduced to Isaac Stern and starting up his symphony benefits and so forth?
Oh, yes. I was, later on, I was concertmaster of San Francisco Symphony. And I encouraged Jack to start doing all this kind of help symphonies raise money. And he always did, and of course his shtick was that the good seats up front were very cheap, but if you wanted to sit farther back, it was much more expensive. And that worked well with his thing. And then I still remember there was an open air concert out in Long Island, and he was standing out there spieling with the audience, and he suddenly said, my violin, please. And the stagehand picked up a dummy fiddle and threw it out onto the stage so it clattered and arrived just at Jack's feet. And of course, Jack gave him that look, the old Jack Benny look. And but I still remember little moments like that.
That's wonderful. Actually, I'll turn on my video for a second, because if you look in the mirror right there, you'll see a violin. And that's one of the prop violins that Jack used in his act when he would call for his violin. They'd throw it out.
He would roll. He would just give it a fling, and it would be on his back and slither right up to Jack's feet, which of course broke up the audience completely.
That's great. We have a couple of questions from the audience. From Garth Johnson, when in the 1960s did Jack Benny and Stuart Canin play with Paul Olefsky on cello and Ralph Hirsch on violin?
My goodness, that's a intimate. We played. He came out to Dartmouth College where I was teaching for the summer with Paul Olefsky, the cellist who's no longer with us, and we played quartets. And there's a wonderful picture of Jack playing first violin, and in the quartet, and he just loved it. You know, he was nuts about the violin. I still remember when we were looking for him at a broadcast or something like that, said, "Oh, Jack's practicing," and we'd always find him in a room just playing. He just loved the sound of the violin, and he did very well at it. Actually, those private sessions.
Mm-hmm. Also, a happy personal memory when you and Virginia were over here, and I showed you that one episode of Jack playing with the 60-piece orchestra, and I think they're doing Zigeunerweisen, or like a mashup of Zigeunerweisen and Love and Bloom, and you're leaning forward and looking at him, going, "He's really playing that."
Oh yeah, no, there's no question about that. He could play. It just reminds me when he was playing a solo with the San Francisco Symphony to raise funds for the orchestra. We had one of our best violinists in the orchestra came out dressed as a stagehand with a cap and a bloom and whatnot. And Jack was standing there with a violin, and he wanted to do something with his music stand, so he told the fellow in the janitorial garment to hold his violin. And the fellow held his violin, and Jack started fooling with the stand. And suddenly the janitor picks up the violin and starts playing a wonderful performance of the Mendelssohn violin. So you can imagine what that did to the audience. Yeah.
That's great. And tell a little bit more about, the benefit performances of just how much was spent on comedy and him talking, and how much was spent on, music or musical comedy, as it were, with him playing and stuff.
Yeah, well, Jack. I mean, he was just a funny man. And all he had to do was stand there and give you the glare, and then you'd break up laughing. He just had a backlog of wonderful moments, wonderful looking moments that just triggered the laughing in the audience. And of course, he knew that, and he would always do that. And then he would always add playing Love and Bloom. That's the famous Love and Bloom. And he was just a great, 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 great guy. And, when he passed away, that took a chunk out of my life. I said, gee whiz, I'll never have that again,
Mm-hmm. Did the death of Fred Allen have any impact on you like that?
Well, Fred had an impact because after we saw that first ad in the New York Post that Fred is offering $75. I mean, it was either all downhill or all uphill from there. And Fred was so different from Jack. He never really laughed, or if he did, it was kind of quickly cut off. He was kind of a somber guy, but he was one of the funniest men. I still read he has a book, Fred Allen, I forget who wrote it, but it's all about him. And he tells the great story of Crenshaw, the eagle that
Mr. Ramshaw, yeah.
Mr. Ramshaw. Got loose from his handler and flew around Studio 8H where Toscanini held forth and began to unload his bombs on the audience. Great moments.
Oh yeah, I think that's Treadmill to Oblivion, if I'm remembering correctly, because Fred has a couple of books, Much Ado About Me, which is more about his vaudeville days, and the treadmill to oblivion was his stories about radio and television. So, but yeah, Zach, you had a great question. Why don't I throw it over to you for a second?
I do. First of all, thank you, Stuart. And you were speaking about your work with Jack in the concert world. Can you touch a little bit on the benefits of what Jack's work did to raise awareness for classical music, and also for the money he raised for those pension funds amongst everything else?
Well, he was an easy sell to the managers when I was in contact with any of the orchestras that I had contact with. And they said, "Oh my goodness, that'd be marvelous." But he always kept a classy view of what he was doing. It was never sort of down, sort of in the gutter stuff. He just did his funny stuff, and he loved raising money for orchestras, because orchestras, the reason that they're called non-profit, because they are they don't make a profit.
Exactly.
And he wanted to help that situation, so he did. That was his summit, and it sort of made his life much more interesting too, because he loved classical music, and that was his way of paying back or giving back to the orchestras.
He gave a great gift for sharing his love of it, just with the playing ability that he had, and really raising that awareness and never treating the material in jest. It was always with respect.
Right, absolutely correct. Yeah, Zach. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. There's actually a good question about this from the audience from Bob Cochran. Explain to a non-musician what you meant when you said Jack Benny's style of playing the violin was a bit old-fashioned as opposed to what you would consider contemporary.
You'll have to repeat the question just a little bit.
Oh, sure. Explain to a non-musician what you meant when you said Jack Benny's style of playing the violin was a bit old-fashioned.
Oh, well, you have to be really understanding a little bit about the way styles have changed. They changed from Misha Elman and Fritz Kreisler, who were the icons of the 30s, the 1920s, 30s, 40s. And when Heifetz came in, it just changed everything that way too. Well, anyway, these people like Elman and Isai and Kreisler, they used what we called portamento in Italian, which means connecting, sliding between notes. So in the Mendelssohn Concerto, for instance, if you go da 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 da, you would connect that as a violinist. Today, people do da 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 da. It was a style, and just as the Viennese waltz went out of style, so that this idea of connecting notes with slides rather than aiming directly for them, that was more the modern way of playing, which you'll hear today.
Gotcha. I didn't even know that, and you know me, I'm a regular over at San Francisco. Speaking of Jascha Heifetz, from Steve Newvine, any encounters with Jascha Heifetz over the years, since Jack would frequently refer to him?
No, I never. I didn't have the money to hear Heifetz in person, but of course I knew his records and everything. He was just he and Paganini were probably the beginning and the end of great violin playing. I don't mean the end, but I mean in the sense of the ability to play the violin. They were just at the peaks, Paganini and Jascha Heifetz. So,
can you say a little bit about, I've heard stories of why it was so popular within Jewish families to want the kids to play violin. Everybody wanted, their own Misha Elman or whatnot. So
sure, I understand that. The reason that they chose the violin and not the piano, because when you had to flee for your lives, you could carry the violin with you, but you couldn't carry a piano.
Yeah, exactly.
That's probably, whether true or not, but And they always said that Isaac Stern was the perfect size for a violinist. He sort of looked like a fire hydrant. Which he did.
I would agree with that.
No comment on his playing. That was great, but he did look like, and Elman, Heifetz, they all looked like they were models for the fire department modeled the fire hydrant on the Jewish violinist.
I don't think Jack qualifies. Maybe that's what impacted.
No, that was his problem.
Yeah, you need to be more like a fire hydrant, Jack.
Yeah.
Hey, we have a fellow Benny researcher, Kathy Fuller-Seeley, on the line, and she has a question for you.
Sure.
Oh, great. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Fine.
Okay, super. Well, it's so delightful to have you join us. I was curious about that photograph that was shown earlier of Fred Allen handing you a check that you said was for $1,000. Was that a scholarship for you, or what was that occasion?
Very, very good. That was at the end of the when they did Love Thy Neighbor premiere in New York. I think it was at the Paramount Theater. They had a whole raft of well-known stars. The Nicholas brothers, Maury Amsterdam were featured in. And then I came out and played the B. And at the end of that, Jack and Fred came out with a check, and they said, "This is to further your music education." And I was very grateful because that was a good chunk of money. Even today, it's a good chunk of money. So, yeah, that was it was to further my music education, and I guess my parents put it in the bank, and here I am, a violinist, 90 years later.
Oh, that's lovely. I'm curious, did the other school children know about your fame? Had other people listen to the show? Did they, did people in your life know about this?
Yes, yes, of course. When I grew up in Far Rockaway, which is a part of Queens and part of New York City, and I grew up in Far Rockaway, a very small town on the beach, right on the Atlantic Ocean. And if you played something like the violin, everybody knew it because everybody was your neighbor. And they all would comment on my. I didn't have any idea how radio worked, that people really listened. And if you were on a program like Fred Allen or Jack Benny, you were listened to by all your schoolmates, and the next day they would say, "Wow, you were on." And it was just a small. Actually, the town was Edgemere, and it was PS 106 that I graduated from, and then went to Far Rockaway High School. But that's later on in my life when I was 13.
Did that $1,000 check go to Juilliard?
Did it go where?
To Juilliard?
No, this was, I was only 14 years old. I was long before Juilliard, long before the war. And the war started. This was 1940. So it was a year before we got into the Second World War, which also has a story. I don't know if you've heard that story about the Potsdam.
I think that would be lovely to hear that story. Please do.
Well, I grew up, we all grew up in those days waiting for your letter from Franklin Roosevelt inviting you to become a member of the United States Army or Navy. And my little request in an envelope marked special, the service, what was it called? I can't remember the exact title of, but they sent me a note saying that I'm going to be drafted and I have to report for service in October. And so I did that, and I became a rifleman, and I was sent to Camp Blanding in Florida, and I trained as a rifleman. And I remember shooting dummies that the sergeant would release from the tree, and I'd have to wheel and shoot them. It was really, really tough training. Machine guns on your head while you're crawled on the ground over your head. Anyway, it came.
Just a quick question. How does that
Yes.
impact playing the violin requires such delicate dexterity. I think of shooting.
Yes,
there we go. So how do you do both?
Well, I kept the violin with me because I was afraid that no one knew how long the war would last or how you would be affected by it, but I wanted to have my violin, and we used to call those violins cigar boxes because that's what they basically were. It was just terrible violins, but you could play on them and they would keep your technique going. Anyway, came October of 1944, which when I was drafted, and I was sent to Camp Landing in Florida for my basic training, which taught me how to be a rifleman. And then in February, I was sent to New York to this port of embarkation, got on a ship, and I was walking up the gangplank with my violin, my rifle, and my bag, my duffel bag. And
Virginia.
as I was, pardon?
I said, thank you, Virginia.
Yes, she's sitting here coaching me, which she does has been doing for a good number of years.
She does a fantastic job.
Anyway, I was walking up the gangplank carrying my fiddle, my rifle, my bag, my duffel bag, my backpack. And as I got to the top of the gangplank, my commanding officer, remember, I was loading onto a troop ship. He said, "What are you going to do with that?" And he looked at the violin case, and I said, "Well, you never know." And of course, we got to Europe on the ship, and I was put on a troop train and was going east towards the Russian front as a rifleman. Just what my job was to be was to fill in for anyone who was no longer there, because it was an infantry replacement. And the war went on, and luckily for me, the war ended in May of 1945. And the next day I was, oh, dear, my goodness, wow, hey,
yeah,
not bad.
I know.
I was sent to, I ended up in Germany, in a town called Kassel, Germany, which is a very big city. And I was sent back to Paris to help form an entertainment unit for the GIs who were going to stay in Europe, but who needed some kind of entertainment because there was nothing available. And I was in a unit complete, you wouldn't believe this, but with Mickey Rooney and the actor, and Josh Logan, the Broadway director. And then a pianist by the name of Eugene List came across and joined the company. And we became a violin and piano team. And we used to play concerts for the wounded troops in all the hospitals around Paris. And we did that for a couple of months. And one day, this was in July of 1945, our commanding officer came to us and said, "You better get all shined up because we're flying to Potsdam, to Berlin, actually, and we're going to drive over to Potsdam." None of us knew why. And when we got to Potsdam, there we were driven out to when we got to Berlin, we were driven out to Potsdam, which is close by Berlin. And there was a tent set up with three cots, one for Eugene List, the pianist, one for Stuart Canin, the violinist, and one for Mickey Rooney, the actor. And the whole idea was they found out that President Truman was coming. He had just become president after Roosevelt's death, and he became president, as I said, and we were going to wait to do. He wanted some entertainment from GIs. And we were okay, we waited for that. Then the next day, our commanding officer said, we're going over to play for President Truman because he wanted some entertainment. And the commanding officer, who must have had inside knowledge, the fact that Joseph Stalin was going to be there too, he said, Mickey, you better stay back here because I'm not sure that Stalin would understand your kind of humor. Well, anyway, we went across. We went up to the back porch of this big house that was unscarred by the war. And we noticed there was a piano, a little upright piano sitting in one corner. And I put my violin behind it just to get it out of the way. And we looked through the French doors, and there was a group of people. It was hard to make out who they were. But when they came out after dinner, Truman came, Winston Churchill came, complete with cigar, and Joseph Stalin came in his marshal's uniform. And they took a seat on a sofa for 3 people. And Truman sat in the center. Churchill sat on his right, sort of befitting his political affiliations. And Stalin sat on his left, befitting his political affiliations. And President Truman said, gentlemen, play something for us. And the whole purpose of that, as I found out later, Truman thought that if he had some music, it would ease his way into talking politics with these 2 people who had been on this world stage for years and years and years. So that's what we did. We played, and I went to get my violin. Eugene sat at the piano, and I went to get my violin. And while I was sort of behind the violin, getting my violin case out, one of Stalin's aides jumped from where Stalin was sitting over to the piano. I think he did it in one leap, just carefully watching what I was taking out of the violin. I could have made big news then, but I didn't. I just took out my violin and walked to the center there, and we started to play. So we played a whole concert of Eugene and myself. We played different pieces, and then Eugene quickly thought, oh, I'll play the piano, the theme from the Tchaikovsky piano concerto. Da, 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 dee, da, da. I won't sing anymore because that's all I know. And Stalin leaped up and said, congratulations to the musicians with a vodka toast. And anyway, we played, and then Truman enjoyed it so much. You know, he was a beloved pianist. He just loved the piano. He loved to play the piano. He said he told us he used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning in Missouri and practice. And then the next few days we stayed around, and Truman asked us to stay and play for his generals and State Department people. So we played, and then one evening he was playing the Missouri Waltz, and he sort of stopped and looked at the 2 of us. Gene and I were standing right over him at the piano, and he said, sotto voce, he said, what do you think the audience, the world would have thought if I had become a concert pianist instead of a president? And that was something said just to us. Never made the books, never made the history books, but that's a true story because you heard it here. And so that's what happened. We played, and then I was sent on my way, went back to Paris and continued to be part of this soldier show company. And then at the end, near the end, about in August or July of 1946, everybody had, because they had enough points, meaning that they had enough time spent overseas, they could go home. We were left with just a small dance band instead of an orchestra that we had eventually become. And guess who was in that as a scat singer? Tony Bennett. Yes, he was.
Oh, wow.
Yes, he was the singer for that little band that we used to play. And good old Tony, we were the same age, but he decided he had enough sooner than I. So
He had
anyway,
to go to, he left his heart in San Francisco, so he had to come back.
say it again.
He left his heart in San Francisco, so he had to come back here.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, that's about it. If you have any more questions, I'd be happy.
Oh yeah, actually, do you have?
Oh my goodness! Oh my!
There, and there's that violin case that Stalin's aide was taking a close look at.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about Mickey Rooney's role in all that. I think you had said to me one time that he was rather frustrated because he wasn't able to do as much. With comedy in English, Stalin isn't going to appreciate it as much.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Oh, Mickey Rooney.
Mickey. Well, I mean, the whole story of him sitting in that sleeping on his cot and staying there while we went across and played for Truman and Stalin and Churchill. He was a little put out, but he was a trooper, and he came back and to the Soldiers Show Company that we were in Paris, that we were part of in Paris, and we just went about our business. And it was not much was made of it, but. As a matter of fact, I said, I wonder if anybody in New York would know that my parents were in New York. I wonder if anybody else knows that we're here doing this. And of course, the next day, we got notified that the New York Times carried the story. Every paper in town carried the story that about these two GIs that played, entertained the big three, as they became known.
And Truman gave you quite a positive review after that.
Well, Truman gave me a wonderful photograph. I must say he remembered, there were no photographers at that particular meeting. And he said he would send me a picture when he got back to the White House. And I said, oh, yeah, I've heard that before. And soon, wouldn't you believe, when I got back home, there was a big frame photo of President Truman saying, best wishes to an excellent violinist, private first class Stuart Canin. So I still have that. That's part of my background.
Great. Somebody actually shared a photo. Garth Johnson, our Uber database person, sent a photo and wanted to see if it inspired any memories for you. And I think Zach's putting that up. Does that look familiar?
Well, it's the rear end of the house. It would be better if it were the front end.
Garth, work on that. How about? Also, here's a loaded question. Who was funnier off mic, Jack or Fred?
Well, Fred's humor was sort of intellectual. I mean, he really delved into just the psyche of America and everything. Jack was more the shtick, the look, the bad fiddle playing, So they were different kinds, but we watched them both faithfully for years. I mean, they were just Wednesday night, Sunday night, nothing else happened. Wednesday at 9, Sunday at 7 for the Jello hour.
Okay. And just say a little bit more about kind of who Fred Allen and Portland were like, just as people, just off mic, and any time that you had associating with them.
Well, we not that we hobnobbed with Fred Allen.
Yeah.
You understand that. We saw them when we were on the show and maybe at the rehearsal a little bit, but the fact that the problem for Fred is that since he was not on television, he was not known, and that story of him dying in New York City on 57th Street, he just felt it and had a heart attack and died, wow. and no one knew who he was until a policeman came over and said to the folks standing around, "That's Fred Allen." And of course, Jack would be known because he was on television, but Fred never quite made it to television. I don't think his style. It was a little bit more intellectual and really poked at America from the inside. And I think that's the difference between the two.
He was a fabulous panelist on What's My Line, I have to say. And we have actually a What's My Line panel tomorrow that's going to be coming up. And I wish he'd been able to do more in television with that. And, oh yeah, there you go. That's a really big violin.
And look at the face.
Yeah, exactly.
Good old friend.
Sour violin.
Yeah.
And a couple of shout outs. One, the question about who was funnier actually came from our man in Santiago, Chile, Rodrigo.
Oh my goodness.
We have folks in Europe that are watching. We have somebody in Chile. I don't know if we have anybody else in South America, but we get around, or Jack gets around. It's more like it. And let's see, from Steve Garland, what do you think was the hardest song or duet for Jack to perform technically when you worked with him? And did you ever give him any technique advice?
I don't think that I had the nerve to give Jack anybody. Oh, there he is. Oh, he's playing first violin. That's right. I'm sorry, I misread. Oh, there's Paul Olewski and
Ralph Hirsch.
Ralph Hirsch, right? Who said that? That's very good. And Jack, and I think that's Stuart there. Yeah. And this was all at Dartmouth College. Yeah, we were playing. He just loved it. He just loved it. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice for struggling musicians or other people in the arts to keep them from giving up their passions?
Well, I once said to somebody, if you don't love it, don't do it. Yeah. I started to play the violin when I was 5.5, and I'm 94 now, and I'm still practicing every day and playing. So you either love it or don't do it, because it's a very demanding profession. Hours and hours and hours of practice, playing and all kinds of struggles, And it really is a non-profit organization that you're trying to get into, which is one of the reasons I went to Hollywood, because I wanted to work for a profit organization.
I was going to say, yeah. Tell us a little bit more about what you did in later years after you left San Francisco.
Well,
I want to admit it,
Yeah, I had 2 kids in medical school, and my wife Virginia and I said we better do something more, because this isn't going to work. The arithmetic wasn't going to work, so we went to Hollywood. And because of my reputation as concertmaster of San Francisco Symphony, I was able to work right in, and I became concertmaster in the Hollywood studio orchestras for John Williams, Randy Newman, James Horner, all those kind of people. I did all, in this short time I was there, I did about 650 films, so we were working all the time, and I was able to put my both kids to a medical school, and that's where they are. So,
mm-hmm. And I believe you had gotten, I hope you don't mind me asking for this story, on-screen credit. And
yeah. Yes, and Death Becomes Her with Meryl Streep. I was watching it in the studio, and the screen credits started to roll, and it said solo violin. There was a solo violin. I said solo violin, Stuart Canin, and I went up to the name of who did the music for Alan Silvestri. Yeah, that's right. There, it's coming back. I had it on roll back. Now I had it on roll forward.
There you go.
So Alan Silvestri, and I went up to him. I said, "Alan, you blew my cover. I didn't want anyone to know I was doing this sort of thing for a living." So he laughed. I hope he laughed.
And then he went to the Los Angeles Opera after that.
Yes. I still loved classical music, and I had done, when I was in San Francisco with the symphony, I was also the concertmaster of the opera, San Francisco Opera, for a number of years. And then finally all this time passed, and I went back to Los Angeles as the concertmaster of the LA Opera, and Placido Domingo was my boss, and just to be around him was just joyous, and he had such an incredible voice, and I hope he's well.
Mm-hmm. Have you done any recordings that are available to buy?
Well, I was never really in the recording business, so I don't even want to say that. I did some pop stuff. I was on Paula Abdul's Rush. I don't know if you ever heard that pop song, and it became a bestseller, and it was a tough piece of music to play. And I played for God alone, God knows how many recordings. Natalie Cole, and what was her father's name?
Nat King Cole.
Nat King Cole, yeah, Natalie Cole. When they did their duos, oh God, I can't remember. I don't categorize them. I just did hundreds of them in the recording business in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to put Renee on the spot here. I've asked him to unmute.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Yeah, he's been watching, and I'm sure enjoying and laughing along with the rest of us. And Renee, you have a Jack Benny story.
Oh,
And by the way, Renee is the one who filmed Stuart playing the bees, so credit to you on that.
yes. Thank you, Laura and Stuart. So wonderful. This is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well, it kind of pales in comparison to everything that's been said. But as a child going to the LA Philharmonic concerts, growing up in LA and going to LA Philharmonic concerts every Sunday afternoon, and knowing, of course, who Jack Benny was from reruns and the like, and my parents, of course, watching. One of the curtain calls, I think Pinchas Zuckerman was the soloist. I forget who it was actually, and suddenly Jack Benny walks out on stage during the curtain calls, and the audience goes nuts, and everybody's laughing, and I had no idea why. I recognized Jack Benny, of course, but I asked my dad, "Why is everybody laughing?" So I think, Laura, you could explain it better because you're aware of that.
It was Pinchas Zuckerman was the soloist, and Jack was watching from the wings, and so Zuckerman goes off, and then Jack says to him, "Hand me the violin," and Jack happened to be in white tie and tails, basically the matching penguin suit, and takes the violin from Zuckerman and walks out, just acting like everything's normal, takes the bow, goes back, hands the violin back to Zuckerman, and Zuckerman comes out.
That's a great story. I forgot that one. Beautiful story.
Out of curiosity, do you remember the last time that you ever saw Jack? Stuart, that's to you.
The last time, what?
That you ever saw Jack?
Oh, God, no. Well, no, I can't remember the last time, because how would I know it was the last time?
That's absolutely fair. Yeah, no kidding. Okay, well, this has been absolutely phenomenal. I'm watching the chat comments go by, and everybody's just so excited. And I just so appreciate your time. God bless. I'll bring you lofa challah as soon as I can, as soon as I recover from all this.
Yeah, but remember the timing I told you. I don't want to have to share it. I want to have to share it.
You got to let me know when everybody else is leaving so that you don't have to share a nice warm loaf.
Right. Drop it off at midnight.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, the horn ain't the only thing that blows at midnight.
Right. Okay.
I do want to say, Stuart, that not just for sharing your memories of Jack, but also sharing your memories of serving in World War II. It was a great honor to listen to those stories, period. It was
Thank
wonderful.
you.